What's going on, guys? This is Isaac from Football Pipeline. Appreciate you for tuning into this video. This is a shorter video. It's a mock draft for the draft approaching in less than 4 days. I wanted to keep it quick. I wanted to give some type of rationale behind each player and the team fit. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, let's kick this off with the Tennessee Titans at number 1. Seems pretty obvious at this point that it's going to be Cam Ward, quarterback in Miami. You're not going to go out and say you think Treylon Burks is a top 5 receiver in the NFL unless you're already Titan. And I think the pick makes a lot of sense. He has a live arm. He can create out of structure, plenty of upside, potentially worth the number 1 selection in the draft. Browns at 2, I think they go Travis Hunter, corner/wide receiver out of Colorado, a true two-way type player in the NFL. That's a rarity among the draft cycle. If you're the Browns, you don't know how high you're going to be picking in future drafts. Might as well get Travis Hunter while he's there. Giants at 3, I think in a similar way. I think the need at quarterback is definitely there, but Abdul Carter is just too good to pass up on. Super twitchy, he's an athletic edge, and he's a good run defender for being 6'3", 250. Patriots at 4, I think you're bummed that you missed out on these 2 generational prospects. Maybe you think about Ashton Jeanty a little bit, but the positional value is not quite there for me, with New England at least. So I think Will Campbell fills a big need in a good way. He's a technical tackle. He's athletic enough to stick a tackle. His hand placement's good. I think it's a really good fit for a team that desperately needs offensive line help. Jaguars at 5, I think they go Mason Graham. It's a very penciled-in kind of selection here through mock drafts in recent weeks, but I think it's a really good fit. This is a team that's biggest need after last season was that interior of the defensive line, bolstering the trenches. They can certainly do that with Mason Graham. Raiders at 6, I definitely think it's one of these offensive playmakers here, and I think Ashton Jeanty makes a lot of sense. He can be a focal point of an offense that already has Brock Bowers and Geno Smith at quarterback. Really good contact balance, really good vision. He's a great athlete as well. Jets at 7, I think it's between 2 players here, Armand Membou or Tyler Warren, and I think Armand Membou is going to be my pick here. He can really fill out an already really good young offensive line, gets to stick at his natural position at right tackle. He's probably the best run blocker at offensive tackle in the draft, with plenty of athleticism to develop as a pass protector. Panthers at 8, I think they're taking the best defensive player on the board, and to me, that's Jalen Walker. He can play off ball, but his best role is as a speed rusher in the NFL, and that's exactly what Carolina needs, more juice off the edge. Saints at 9, I think this is where the Shedeur Sanders slide comes to an end because I think he's that good of a player. And I think with Derek Carr not playing next year potentially, it makes all the more sense for Shedeur to land here. He's accurate across all 3 levels of the field, and I think he has an underrated arm as well. Bears at 10, I think with Jeanty off the board, who they would probably take if he was there, they can pivot to Omarion Hampton, who's also a really nice running back, 6'1", 220, good vision, but he's a really good athlete, good straight line speed at that size. 49ers here at 11. This is one of my favorite fits of the draft. I have them going Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. High potential player. He's polarizing in this draft class. I've seen him as high as 7 to the Jets, and I've also seen him fall to the first round. He's a disruptor, not a finisher yet, but I definitely think that San Francisco and Robert Saleh can develop him into a nice NFL player. Cowboys at 12, I like the idea of adding another receiver into that offense to pair with CeeDee Lamb, and I think Ted McMillan really complements the skill set of Lamb in that offense. Big body, ex-receiver, 6'4", 215 pounds. He's got a good catch radius, and he's a good route runner for his size. Dolphins at 13, I think they do upgrade their secondary. They're probably going to trade Jalen Ramsey at some point during the draft, and Will Johnson is a good replacement. He is an athletic player. I know there's some questions after injuries with his long speed, but he's smooth in coverage, and he's very technical. Colts at 14, I like the idea of drafting Tyler Warren here. You need to capitalize on Anthony Richardson. Giving him another weapon, it makes a lot of sense. Falcons at 15, I think Mike Green is a good player to draft for them. He's an athletic freak, 6'4", 250. He's explosive. It seems like we often mock edge rushers with the Falcons in the first round, and they rarely do it, but I think this year it feels like a good possibility they do. Cardinals at 16, I think they upgrade that interior of that defensive line, and I think that Kenneth Grant can do that in a big way. He's a true nose tackle for Jonathan Gannon's defense. Surprising quickness and pass rush for his size. Definitely has some refinement to do in his game, but I think he lands in a good place to do that. Bengals at 17, it feels like it has to be a defensive player here after allocating all that money into the core on offense. And I think Nicky Manwari is a kind of a do-it-all safety. A lot of good tools. He's athletic, can play in the box, can be a too-high kind of player for that defense as well. Seahawks at 18, I think they can upgrade that interior of the offensive line, which is a big need for them. In Gray Zabel, he can play guard or center, and I think those are both big needs for Seattle. Buccaneers here at 19, I think they can upgrade the middle of the defense with Jahad Campbell to pair with Levante David. He is a very athletic player. He's a great chase tackler. He's athletic enough to be good in pass coverage, and he's nowhere near his ceiling, and I think he lands in a good spot for his development. Broncos here at 20, I think with both running backs, Broncos here at 20, and I think with both running backs off the board, they're going to pivot into a different direction. And I think with Matthew Golden being on the board, it is a good spot for him. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. Really good route runner. He showed that he can run 4.29 at the combine. Reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs as a player. Steelers here at 21. I think the first shocker of the draft happens with one of these quarterbacks going off the board, and I think Jalen Milroe will be the pick. Athletic player, 6'2", 220 pounds, ran in the 4.3s. He can throw the ball 70 yards in the air. The thing is, he's not accurate. He makes some wild decisions at times. But if the Steelers think they can develop him, they could certainly consider taking him in round 1. Chargers at 22. I think Colston Loveland being on the board would make sense for them to take him. He is a true power slot kind of receiver. Doesn't give you much of a blocker. That's not quite his game. But Jim Harbaugh has shown he knows how to use him in an offense. And Greg Roman loves using tight ends. Here we have the Green Bay Packers at 23. I think Luther Burden makes a lot of sense. I know Goody does not like drafting wide receivers in round 1, but Luther Burden seems like the best player available for them on the board. Not a lot of needs outside of maybe corner, maybe another pass rusher, but I think Luther Burden to be that number 1 receiver makes a lot of sense. He really turns into like a running back after the catch, and he has played on the outside before, so he's shown he can do that. Vikings at 24. I think Malachi Starks on the board. This is an obvious trade down spot as well for the Vikings. They don't have a lot of picks in the mid rounds, but if they were to pick, Starks definitely fits that defense after losing Cam Bynum in free agency. Texans at 25. I think it will be an offensive lineman, and Kelvin Banks Jr. definitely fits what they want to do. He can slide into guard, but also could be that left tackle for them after Laremy Tunsil was traded to Washington. He is a really good player, and I think he's kind of fallen here down boards, but I think he's underrated. Rams here at 26. I think with Jahdae Barron being on the board, this is where he could end up. This is a player that could really go as high as 6 I've seen in mock drafts, but also fall to the first round similar to Walter Nolan, just because the positional value is not there for Jahdae Barron. He's definitely a nickel corner, doesn't have the ideal size to play outside in the NFL. He can do it on occasion, but that's not what he did at Texas. He excels as a nickel corner, which is why we saw Brian Branch fall out of the first round a couple years ago, and he's turned out into a really nice player. Okay, Ravens here at 27. I think James Pierce Jr. would be a really good fit for this defense. 6'5", 240, probably the best get-off and closing speed out of any edge in this draft. The Ravens do not need him to be a full 3-down edge in year 1 while he develops as a player. He's a designated pass rusher for them, and he has all the tools to be a true double-digit sack kind of player in the NFL at some point in his career. We have the Detroit Lions at 28. I think Donovan Ezaraku makes a lot of sense. This is a really good technician at edge, a variety of moves he can hit you with. Doesn't have an extreme upside because of the run defense. He's a little undersized at position, but I think he's a good pairing with Aiden Hutchinson on that D-line. Commanders here at 29. I think we have a little bit of a rush on defensive ends here. Shamar Stewart makes a lot of sense. The tools are great. He ran 4.59 at 6'6", 270 pounds. That is some crazy traits, and I think the Commanders and Dan Quinn have shown that they like to develop, or Dan Quinn at least has shown he likes to develop some high trait defensive ends in his career. Buffalo at 30, I think Derek Harmon makes a lot of sense. They need more on the defensive line. Harmon is a very productive player, high floor kind of player to elevate that defensive line. Chiefs at 31, I think they turned in the card pretty quick for Josh Simmons. Before a pretty serious knee injury, he was the number 1 tackle in the draft. Chiefs can land a fallen potential star here at 31. Eagles here at 32, I think, can cap off the draft with a very Philadelphia Howie Roseman selection with Mykel Williams kind of falling here in their laps. This is a Georgia Bulldog. You know they like to do that, but he's also just a really good run defender, high ceiling player with great size at 6'5", 260 pounds, good run defender, and there's some upside there as a pass rusher. So that's my first round mock draft. Some definite question marks on players falling. I think Jahdae Barron went pretty late, but he's a player that I find very interesting to see where he'll land. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is the player to highlight on draft night to see where he goes. This is a realistic mock draft with no trades. Probably the day before the draft or 2 days before, I will release my final mock draft with trades. If not, this is my final one. Lock it in. Hopefully, we get some of these right. See you guys next time in the next video. Peace out.